History classes usually focus on major events and famous figures, but there's a treasure trove of lesser-known, fascinating details that seldom make it into the curriculum. In this video, we're exploring 20 intriguing historical facts that offer a fresh perspective on the past. We'll travel across time periods and continents, uncovering hidden stories that provide a fuller picture of history. Let's dive in. 1. The Little Ice Age's impact on European history. While history books focus on wars, revolutions, and political changes, the climate itself dramatically affected human lives. The Little Ice Age, spanning roughly from 1300 to 1850, led to a significant drop in temperatures across the Northern Hemisphere. This cooling severely impacted agriculture in Europe, causing widespread crop failures. Wheat, a staple crop, became scarce, forcing many to switch to more resilient grains like rye and barley. These crop failures spurred famines that shook the social and political foundations of Europe. Beyond agriculture, the Little Ice Age influenced culture, as artists like Peter Bruegel captured the frost-bitten landscapes in their winter scenes. It even froze the Thames River in London multiple times, giving rise to famous frost fairs held directly on the ice. Perhaps most notably, the Viking presence in Greenland came to an end, as their agricultural way of life became unsustainable due to the colder climate. 2. George Washington's troublesome teeth. While George Washington is often depicted with a stoic demeanor, his portraits hide the pain he endured from severe dental problems. Contrary to popular myth, Washington did not have wooden teeth. His dentures were an uncomfortable combination of materials, including gold, lead, ivory, and even teeth from humans and animals. By the time he became the first U.S. president, Washington had only one natural tooth left. His constant discomfort from his dental issues is thought to have contributed to his short inaugural address, which remains the briefest in U.S. history. Washington's dental troubles also impacted his public image, as he was often perceived as aloof due to his preference for remaining silent in gatherings, partly because of the discomfort of his dentures. The Great Emu War of Australia. War is usually thought of as a conflict between nations or groups of people, but in 1932, Australia found itself waging war against a surprising adversary: emus. After World War I, returning Australian soldiers were given land to farm, but a surge in the emu population threatened their crops. Desperate, the farmers called on the government for military aid. Armed with machine guns, soldiers were sent to battle these large, flightless birds. However, the emus, fast and resilient, outmaneuvered the soldiers. The Great Emu War became an embarrassing failure for the military. The government eventually switched tactics, offering bounties for emus which proved far more effective. This peculiar episode serves as a reminder of how even the best-laid plans can go awry, especially when nature is involved. The Dancing Plague of 1518. Imagine a city where hundreds of people are suddenly compelled to dance, day and night, until they collapse from exhaustion, or in some cases, even die. This bizarre event occurred in Strasbourg, now part of France, in July 1518, when one woman, Frau Trophea, began dancing uncontrollably in the streets. Her strange behavior soon spread to others, and within a month, around 400 people were afflicted with the same irresistible urge to dance. While contemporary explanations ranged from divine punishment to demonic possession, modern theories suggest that mass hysteria, or ergotism, a condition caused by consuming mold-infected rye, may have been the cause. Although the exact reason remains a mystery, the Dancing Plague of 1518 is one of history's strangest and most unsettling phenomena, highlighting how psychological and environmental factors can sometimes combine in unexpected ways. The not-so-glamorous life of pirates are often depicted as swashbuckling adventurers in search of treasure, but the reality of pirate life was far from glamorous. Life aboard pirate ships was dangerous and dirty, with scurvy, dysentery, and malnutrition rampant due to poor access to fresh food and clean water. Pirates constantly risked death from naval battles, storms, and shipwrecks, and those captured often faced execution or life in prison. Despite these harsh conditions, pirates did practice a form of democracy rare for the time: Captains and quartermasters were elected by the crew. They even had compensation systems for injured crew members. Though popular culture romanticizes piracy, the reality was brutal, short-lived, and often ended violently. The turbulent adoption of the Gregorian calendar. The calendar that governs much of the modern world, the Gregorian calendar, was introduced by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582. Its purpose was to fix inaccuracies in the Julian calendar and align the date of Easter with the spring equinox. However, not everyone embraced the new system immediately. Protestant and Orthodox countries resisted the change, viewing it with suspicion as a Catholic plot. As a result, Great Britain and its colonies didn't adopt the Gregorian calendar until 1752, and Russia didn't switch until 1918, after the Bolshevik Revolution. This divergence in calendars meant that different regions of the world were literally living in different years for centuries, highlighting how even seemingly small scientific advancements can become entangled with religious and political tensions. 7. Napoleon Bonaparte's height misconception. The image of Napoleon as a short, power-hungry emperor has been ingrained in popular culture. But in reality, Napoleon wasn't particularly short for his time. The confusion arises from the difference between French and English measurements. Napoleon's recorded height was 5 feet 2 inches, measured in French feet, which are longer than English feet. In modern terms, he was actually around 5 feet 7 inches tall, slightly above average for a Frenchman of his era. British caricatures of Napoleon often exaggerated his short stature as a means of mocking him, further entrenching the myth that he was unusually small. 8. Mount Rushmore's overlooked Indigenous history. Mount Rushmore, with its towering carvings of 4 U.S. presidents, is celebrated as a national symbol. However, long before the monument was created, the land it occupies was sacred to the Lakota Sioux tribe. Known as the Six Grandfathers, the Black Hills area was promised to the Sioux in the Treaty of Fort Laramie in 1868. However, the discovery of gold in the region led the U.S. government to renege on the treaty, sparking a long-standing dispute over the land. For many Native Americans, Mount Rushmore represents a painful reminder of broken promises and the erasure of indigenous heritage. 9. The true role of the Great Wall of China. The Great Wall of China is often thought of as a purely defensive structure, built to keep invaders like the Mongols out. While it certainly served that purpose, its original intent was also to regulate trade along the Silk Road. Emperor Qin Shi Huang, who began connecting sections of the wall around 221 BC, used it as a means of controlling immigration and trade, with guard stations functioning as customs posts. The wall's dual purpose reflects the complexity of balancing security and economic control in ancient China. 10. The misunderstood Vikings. Vikings are often imagined as brutal raiders wearing horned helmets, but the reality of Viking life was far more nuanced. Vikings were not just raiders, they were also traders, explorers, and settlers. Their influence stretched from Scandinavia to the Middle East, and they reached North America centuries before Columbus. The iconic horned helmets often associated with Vikings are a product of 19th century Romanticism. Real Viking helmets had no such embellishments. Viking culture was complex, with well-developed art, laws, and social systems, far removed from the simplistic image of savage warriors. 11. The surprising origins of ketchup. Ketchup, a staple condiment in many households, didn't always look or taste the way it does today. The word ketchup originally comes from the Chinese word ketchup, a fermented fish sauce. British explorers encountered this sauce in Southeast Asia during the 18th century and brought the recipe back to England, where it was adapted to include mushrooms, walnuts, and other ingredients. Tomatoes weren't added to ketchup until the early 19th century, when American cooks popularized the version we know today. The history of ketchup shows how global cultural exchanges can reshape even the most everyday items. 12. The loss of knowledge in the Library of Alexandria. The Library of Alexandria was one of the largest and most significant centers of learning in the ancient world, housing an estimated 40,000 to 400,000 scrolls. It attracted scholars from across the Mediterranean, but over centuries, Much of its vast collection was destroyed due to fires, wars, and religious conflicts. While the timeline of the library's destruction is still debated, the loss of knowledge remains one of the greatest tragedies in intellectual history. The destruction of this library is a stark reminder of the fragility of human knowledge and the importance of preservation. 13. Roman plumbing. A double-edged sword. The Roman Empire is often praised for its advanced engineering, particularly its plumbing system. Roman aqueducts and sewers provided cities with fresh water and sanitation, greatly improving public health. However, the Romans also used lead pipes, unaware of the dangers of lead poisoning. Some historians speculate that widespread lead poisoning may have contributed to the empire's eventual decline. This duality of Roman innovation highlights how technological progress can have unintended consequences. 14. The accidental invention of the microwave. In 1945, engineer Percy Spencer was working on radar technology when he noticed that a chocolate bar in his pocket had melted. Curious, he began experimenting with the radar waves, eventually leading to the invention of the microwave oven. The first microwaves were bulky and expensive, standing 6 feet tall and weighing 750 pounds. It took several decades for the technology to become affordable and compact enough for home use. This story of accidental discovery underscores the role of serendipity in scientific advancement. 15. Cleopatra, more Greek than Egyptian. Cleopatra VII, the last ruler of Egypt's Ptolemaic dynasty, is often depicted as an exotic Egyptian queen, but her ancestry was Macedonian Greek. Despite her lineage, Cleopatra embraced Egyptian culture, becoming the first Ptolemaic ruler to learn the Egyptian language and adopt many of its customs. Her efforts to unite her Greek heritage with Egyptian traditions allowed her to maintain power in a volatile political landscape. Cleopatra's story is a reminder of how cultural identity can be fluid, particularly in periods of political upheaval. 16. The English language's multicultural roots. English, now a global lingua franca, has evolved over centuries from a mixture of various languages. When the Normans invaded England in 1066, they brought Old French with them, which heavily influenced English vocabulary. Before that, the Anglo-Saxons contributed Germanic roots, while Latin words entered the language through the influence of the Roman Empire and the Christian Church. Over time, English has absorbed elements from many other languages, including Dutch, Norse, Arabic, and Hindi, reflecting its status as a language shaped by trade, conquest, and migration. 17. Christopher Columbus's miscalculation. Christopher Columbus set sail in 1492 with the goal of finding a new route to Asia. However, his calculations were flawed, and he dramatically underestimated the size of the Earth. When he reached the Caribbean, he believed he had arrived in Asia, leading to the misnaming of the indigenous people he encountered as Indians. This misconception persisted for centuries, and even today the term West Indies reflects Columbus's original mistake. Columbus's story highlights the challenges of early navigation and the lasting consequences of geographical errors. 18. Benjamin Franklin's love for turkeys. Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of the United States, is famous for his many contributions to science and politics. However, he also had a quirky opinion about the national bird of the United States. While the bald eagle was chosen as the symbol of American independence, Franklin preferred the turkey. He argued that the turkey was a more respectable bird, native to America and courageous in defending its territory. While Franklin's suggestion didn't take hold, his admiration for the turkey provides an amusing footnote in American history. 19. The Statue of Liberty's forgotten symbolism. The Statue of Liberty is widely recognized as a symbol of freedom and hope for immigrants arriving in the United States. However, its original purpose was to commemorate the alliance between the U.S. and France and to celebrate the ideals of liberty and enlightenment. It wasn't until poet Emma Lazarus's famous words, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses," were added to the statue's pedestal in 1903, that it became associated with immigration. The evolving meaning of the Statue of Liberty illustrates how symbols can take on new significance over time. The ever-changing story of history. The facts we know about history are constantly evolving as new discoveries are made, and existing knowledge is re-evaluated. Many of the stories we've discussed today show how easily misconceptions can arise, whether from propaganda, cultural biases, or simple misunderstandings. History is a living narrative, shaped by those who tell it and retell it. By looking at lesser-known facts, we gain a more complete picture of the past and a better understanding of how our world came to be. So the next time you think you know a historical event, remember, there's always more to the story. By uncovering these obscure facts, we get a glimpse of how rich and multifaceted history truly is. The next time you think you know the whole story, just remember, the past is full of surprises. The